Good morning, Irene.
Good morning.
Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
Today is a special week
Right.
for us here on our homestead.
It's the 18th anniversary of when we actually closed on the property.
We put an offer on the property 18 years and 1 month ago, but with some very special conditions. We had just managed to sell property that we had in California because I lost my job and I needed to move that property someplace else because we had a balloon payment coming up and I was in the middle of refinancing and that was just not going to work, so we sold it. And then began a long trip.
Right. And well, the part of the problem was at the time it was just the wrong timing on things. The price of land was up in a lot of places in the United States. It dropped like a rock a couple of years later, actually within a year, a lot of places. But at the time, what our goal was to buy a piece of property that we could use as a base of operations, not necessarily to live on.
At least not full time, right?
Right. And we were looking for some place that we could buy outright and probably be able to afford the taxes and stuff like that.
And this place, despite the fact that property prices were up, was very reasonably priced. We got it below the nominal market because a property owner had owned it for 2.5 years. She'd planned to flip the property. She was a real estate agent, and she'd been trying to sell it for 2 years.
Yeah, and it was just one of those odd times when there was nothing selling locally here.
Yeah, there had been no sales for more than a year. And we started off looking on the East Coast.
Right, because we didn't want to be out here, to be honest.
Definitely not full time.
No. Like I said, this was intended as a base of operations, never as a place to live.
So we ended up purchasing this place, which has worked out all right for us. It's not ideal, but it's done the job for us at this point. But we didn't come to northern Arizona devoid of skills. And one of the things that you really have to think about, if you're contemplating having any kind of rural lifestyle or off-grid lifestyle or homestead lifestyle, you need to really seriously think about what skills you need.
Yeah, well, how old were you the first time you ever cut wood?
Oh, I don't know, he's 12, 13, somewhere around there.
Well, I mean with a saw, not with a
saw?
chainsaw, or with a hatchet or an axe.
Definitely. Well, I worked with my father when we were cutting down elm trees in the backyard because we had Dutch elm disease. And I was probably, I guess, maybe 16 or 17, did some chainsaw work, not a whole lot. My father did most of that. He didn't trust anybody with that chainsaw. There was no safety features on that chainsaw.
The old chainsaws had no safety features at all.
In fact, I still have that chainsaw. It's a beast to operate. It's kind of difficult. But yeah, I've done a lot of, I guess most people would consider it pretty heavy labor. Moving wood, cutting wood, splitting wood.
Well, I remember helping my grandfather with a double-ended buck saw, the kind that you see the people doing this in the old movies from the
Right.
1920s or something. That's the way we used to cut wood. He did not have any electric saws. So we would buck the wood out on the sawbuck and split it if it was too big.
Yeah, all the wood that we burned when I was a kid was too big to burn in the round. Well, most of it was anyway. And so it all had to be split. It's split by hand with an axe or a splitting wedge. That's some work. I'm here to tell you that if you're in a split elm, whether it's wet or dry, it's hard work.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were exposed to a lot, both of us were exposed to what I call a lot of practical skills. You know, fishing, just the concept that you could look at something and figure it out, and and jury rig something if you needed to, which is kind of a way of life out here. I mean, it really is.
You know, we live an hour and 15 minutes on the low end going to a reasonable area that had some stores that help you with the right kinds of tools, the right kinds of supplies. If you need any more specialized supplies, you're going to drive 130, 140 miles one way to get to a much larger area. And even there, going from northern Arizona down to Phoenix, you don't have the same climate, so you don't get the same things that you need. In fact, when we had a big freeze up here, what, maybe 13 years ago, 12 years ago?
Probably closer to 14 now.
This whole area was unseasonably cold for a long time.
Over a month.
We had around 0 temperatures for about a month. And when I put in the water line going from our water tanks to first our trailer, we lived in a mobile home, it was from 1950, it was rat infested when we first got here. We cleaned that out. I fixed the plumbing, fixed the electric.
It was fine. It was actually a very, very comfortable trailer. And it even had a bathtub, even if it was pink.
And we don't have a bathtub right now.
Right. So I give him crap about that all the time.
That's true. But I buried the water line from the water tanks 2.5 or 3 feet deep from the water tanks all the way down to the utility building and then to the trailer and now to the house. And you know, it was so cold for so long that that water line froze down at the elbow that connected to the pipe that was 3 feet underground. It froze 2.5 feet down. And it took days and days and days of digging and running torpedo heaters 24/7 to thaw it out enough to break that blockage.
But we did
loose.
not break any pipes.
Got lucky.
The topic of conversation at the post office was, did you break any pipes? Do you have replacement parts?
And so
and the answer was no, you couldn't buy any in northern Arizona.
there was a shortage of copper. There was a shortage of PVC. In fact, the people who were doing the large-scale construction further south from here were bringing in copper pipe by the truckload from Southern California because that's the only place they could get it.
Yeah, because this whole part of the United States had frozen solid.
Irene took a class at Shelter Institute in Maine. I was working in Massachusetts at the time. She and the kids were living in Maine. She was going to Shelter Institute. I don't remember how long the course was. I know that it was at least 40 hours.
It was an intensive class sort of thing where you go every day for a week for, that sort of thing.
So she learned basic building codes, building techniques, the kinds of structures you need to do timber frame or stick built. Just a lot of practical information.
Basic math for figuring out how far apart your beam should be, that kind of stuff. There's charts. It's not brain surgery. It's just a chart.
Now, she took that class, I think, in 1989, 90. She took that class. I would have liked to have taken it. I lived vicariously through her classes, and I read the class notes. We talked about what she was learning. But we intended to build one day, and where we were going to build, we weren't positive. We had some ideas at the time that changed for some reasons. But we had some basic building skills. Irene was competent with hammer and screwdriver and nail gun and table saw.
My dad used to do things like build the cabinets for his own workshop. I wasn't allowed to use the table saw, but I was allowed to watch. And I knew how to use all the hand tools. And it didn't take much reading instructions to figure out how to use the non-hand tools. And then for my, what was it? Was that like our 25th wedding anniversary or something like that? 20th wedding anniversary. You got me a shopsmith.
I did,
because I had an old Craftsman saw, not the skill saw style, but the table saw.
Table saw, right?
And of course, the shopsmith has got all kinds of capabilities that because it was a pretty ratty old Craftsman.
I think we bought the Craftsman at a yard sale or something like that.
Probably.
But that was a long time ago. And when I first bought the shopsmith for Irene, now I'm perfectly competent to use all of those tools and all the attachments. But I bought the shopsmith for Irene because at the time she was not stay at home, but she was at home. She was working from home. We had 2 kids in school. It was funny because when we were moving from Texas, the movers said,
That's a really nice shopsmith you got there, mister.
I said, it's my wife's.
Yeah. And they're like,
Oh.
yeah, it was always hysterical. I mean, we joke about the fact that our goal in life was to make sure that both of our kids could cook and use a hammer and nails and screwdrivers and all that kind of basic stuff, because I never wanted my daughter to have to be dependent on any stupid male.
And we didn't want our son to be
Dependent on any stupid female. I mean, the whole point was the independence concept.
Or smart. It didn't matter. Stupid or smart. So we both have an eclectic. That's the word to use.
Yes,
eclectic collection of skills. I'm perfectly competent under a car and an engine in the wood shop. I'm perfectly fine with doing electrical, and Irene's able to do all those same things.
Yeah, we both have our preferences. He really enjoys doing electrical. I prefer plumbing to electrical. I don't care for electrical, but I have changed out many a light switch and stuff like that.
I hate plumbing, but I do it just fine. In fact, I've got to replumb the kitchen sink because we have a leaking gasket under one of the sinks.
Yeah, we had trouble getting the parts when we were actually putting together the sink.
When you're thinking about homesteading, or you're thinking about living rurally, or you're thinking about living off-grid, think about acquiring those skills now. Don't wait.
No.
You know, there's community colleges, many places. You can take online classes. Definitely anything that's a manual skill. So if you don't have the skills, you're at a disadvantage. Construction skills, a good thing. If you're going to live in the country, really seriously think about a tractor of some kind. Whether you can afford a brand new big one, a brand new small one, or a used small one. A tractor makes all the difference in the world. Now, we did 15 years of work on this property without a tractor.
Yeah, it was a major mistake.
It was all hand digging and it was using a wheelbarrow. If you are thinking about constructing a place yourself, make sure you know how to read a blueprint.
Right. Even if you're not going to build it, you need to know something.
There's a lot of skills that you can gain over time. If you're in your 20s, definitely take the time when you're young to learn those skills.
Well, there's so many places now. You know, even people we know who I consider to be fairly skilled, ourselves included, sometimes when you're looking for some information, you go to YouTube and you watch a bunch of videos, and you carefully sort through who you're looking for. Well, I'm sorry, there's some Fruit Loops on YouTube that shouldn't be allowed near a hammer, much less anything fancier.
The problem with sorting through YouTube videos is if you don't know enough about the basic engineering and the basic skill,
you can get some really bad advice.
A lot of really bad advice. It's not because those people are necessarily trying to give you bad advice. They just don't know any better.
They don't know any better. You know, Home Depot teaches classes on basic stuff. There's a lot of do-it-yourself type classes available through community colleges, through senior centers, through just all kinds of stuff. You know, don't be embarrassed to take your kid down to Home Depot to learn to bake a birdhouse, and you're being there with them because you're actually the one who's learning the stuff. You know, I mean, everybody's got to learn somewhere.
Yeah, so it's easier if you start young and start gathering these skills up.
Yeah.
And the basic tools that go with the job. I'm not talking about going out and buying a tractor if you're not ready to be on a piece of property. But if you know how a tractor operates and you know how to operate it safely, and the key is safely, there's a lot of things when you start looking at a rural lifestyle that, not to be overly dramatic, but can kill you.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of skills that you can gain. I advocate start early, but if you can't start when you're 20, start when you're 30. If you can't start when you're 30, start when you're 40. If you can't start when you're 40, start when you're 50. If you can't start when you're 50, start later.
Yeah. People are amazed that we'll be paying attention to our weather, that we get weather alerts on our phones. I get weather alerts on my watch. It's all set up. You can do it through, if you have a smartphone, and most people do these days, to be honest, set it up so that you get weather alerts. It can save your life, quite literally.
If you're not comfortable with electric, don't mess with electric, but understand how it works. If you're
Yeah.
not comfortable with plumbing, don't mess with it, but understand how it works.
Right. You know, I really do not want to change the tires on my car. Can I do it? Yes, I can. I do not really want to change the oil in my car. I have changed the oil in many a generator. I don't really enjoy it, but I do it when it needs to be done. And that's where you need to be on this kind of stuff. If you know what it's supposed to be, then you can do it if you have to.
Just keep in mind that things are going to change. There's very little or very few things in life that don't change over time.
Really.
Those rules are going to change. I'm as positive as I can be. I've lived long enough in enough different places where we've seen it happen. So just plan on that happening. If you live someplace that has a big agricultural piece of business, chances are the agricultural rules are mostly going to stay the same for the foreseeable future. But they're going to change too. So, you know what? We're going to say goodbye because this is really long.
This is already a giant thing. It was supposed to be quick. So, yeah. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because obviously we've got a ton going on. Lots more packing, lots more decisions on meals. We have a bunch of odd bits and pieces to take care of. Whew.
We both have a couple of really important projects we need to get done. We'll get them done after dealing with a lot of issues.
Always. Jack's taking a nap. He's decided this is the right thing to do. So until next time, bye.
Keep on brainstorming.
Yeah, because obviously we do.
Are you sure?
Yes. Guaranteed.
My brain is stormy.
I thought that was the problem this morning.
Blink, blink.
Blink, blink.